Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we're doing a deep dive into something that might genuinely surprise you. New Zealand's security posture and defense strategy. It's really evolving fast. Our mission, like always, to sift through the source material we've got, pull out the key insights, and give you a really solid understanding of why this nation, the one known for peace and being pretty remote, is signaling such a big shift. It's almost unprecedented in their defense approach. You might be surprised by the challenges they're facing and, well, how they're planning to tackle them head on. So to get started, our sources point to a pretty stark warning. It's coming from the NZ Security Intelligence Service, the NZSIS. They're basically saying New Zealand is navigating its most severe national security environment in, well, recent memory. We're talking heightened dangers, foreign interference, espionage, even the growing threat of online radicalization. And the government's response? It's pretty significant, planning NZ $9 billion in new defense spending over the next 4 years. The goal, and it's ambitious, is climbing from just over 1% of GDP on defense now, up to 2% within 8 years.
That's a huge commitment for New Zealand, considering their history.
It really is. And what's fascinating here, I think, is putting that warning into context. For a nation often seen as safe just because of where it is on the map, for decades, New Zealand has perhaps sort of taken its security a bit for granted. And that's definitely reflected in consistent underinvestment in its military. Our material shows, just last year, 2023, defense spending was only around 1.22% of GDP. And get this, there was even a projection for 2024 that considered cutting it down to maybe 0.9%.
Wow, 0.9%. So this new commitment is a real turnaround.
Absolutely, a stark departure. The new Defense Capability Plan for 2025 actually outlines NZ $12 billion in total funding over 4 years. Now, that includes the NZ $9 billion in new money we mentioned, and it explicitly reinforces this pledge, double defense spending to reach 2% of GDP, or maybe even more. Just looking at the immediate step, the current fiscal year 2025-26, the budget is set at NZ $5.19 billion. That's roughly 1.3% of GDP. So you can see they're starting that climb right away. It's a total rethink of their security needs.
Okay, so that immediately makes you wonder, what does New Zealand's military actually look like right now? What are we starting with? The sources say, as of June 2024, the New Zealand Defence Force, the NZDF, has around 15,300 personnel total. That's regulars, reserves, and civilians combined.
Right, about 10,000 regular force, roughly 3,300 reserves, and similar number of civilians.
But maybe more telling than just the head count is what they're equipped with, and crucially, what they're not equipped with. So let's take the Army. About 4,600 regulars, maybe 2,100 reserves.
Yeah, around those numbers.
And their main armored vehicle is the LEV 3rd. About 73 of them. They're wheeled troop carriers, right? More for transport, maybe peacekeeping, not really heavy combat stuff.
That's right. Good for certain roles, but limited in others.
Then the Navy. Roughly 2,200 regular sailors. Their main punch comes from 2 Anzac-class frigates. Those are multi-purpose warships. Plus patrol boats and logistics ships.
Correct. A relatively small but capable fleet for their size and typical tasks.
And then the Air Force, the RNZAF. About 2,400 active personnel. Their focus seems to be mainly patrol and transport. They've got about 44 aircraft in total. But here's the detail that really jumps out from our sources, the one that everyone points to. Absolutely zero air combat capability. None since the A4 Skyhawks were retired.
Way back in 2001.
Yeah, 2001. That's, what, over 2 decades without any dedicated fighter jets?
Yeah.
That seems significant.
It is. It's a major point.
They do have other kit, of course.
Yeah.
Helicopters like the Augusta-Westland A109, the SH-2G Super Sea Sprite NH-90s. And for transport and surveillance, this seems key. They've got 4 new Boeing P-8 Poseidons. Those are top-tier maritime patrol aircraft, right? Like flying eyes over the ocean.
Exactly. Very capable ISR platforms.
Plus 2 Boeing 757s for transport and 5 of the new C-130J Hercules workhorses for tactical airlift.
And they've got trainers, T-6, Texan Thekas, King Air 350s, and some new utility vehicles coming in for the Army, those VAMTACs.
Okay. So looking at that whole inventory, what's the big takeaway? What does it tell us?
Well, for me, it clearly shows a force structured primarily for peacekeeping, disaster relief, maritime surveillance, maybe some limited regional deployments, not high-intensity conflict. Those P-8s and the C-130s are absolutely vital for what New Zealand does in the Pacific, responding to cyclones, fisheries, patrols, supporting neighbors. The frigates give them that blue water presence.
With the gap.
The gap is stark. That lack of air combat capability isn't just, a missing piece. It's a fundamental limitation on their strategic options. operations. It means for any serious scenario requiring air cover or defense against air attack, New Zealand is completely, utterly reliant on its allies.
Which impacts their strategic autonomy, as you said.
Massively. So, yes, the current inventory supports their traditional roles, but it also highlights a very specific defensive posture, one that's now being seriously challenged by the changing environment.
Right. That leads us straight into the next obvious question. Why? Why is New Zealand, this nation we often think of as, safe and sound down there, suddenly feeling so exposed? Our deep dive points to three main vulnerabilities. First one, chronic underinvestment. Like you mentioned, for 2 decades, defense spending was stuck near 1% of GDP. And this wasn't just a number on a spreadsheet. It meant equipment getting old, becoming obsolete. It meant they couldn't operate as far afield. And critically, it led to major personnel shortages.
That's a huge factor. The attrition rate has been really high, averaging almost 16%.
15.8%, yeah. Driven by things like poor pay, tough conditions. It really hampers readiness. I mean, what's the point of new kit if you struggle to find enough trained people to operate and maintain it?
Exactly. You can't just buy your way out of a personnel crisis overnight.
Okay, second vulnerability. Overdependence on allies. New Zealand's geography, being so isolated, means it naturally leans heavily on partners. Australia, the U.S., for regional defense, keeping sea lanes open, and intelligence through Five Eyes.
Which is a double-edged sword, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. It's beneficial, no doubt. But it also means New Zealand doesn't have full strategic autonomy. They're vulnerable if partners' interests shift, or if, say, the U.S. or Australia get heavily committed somewhere else.
It's like they outsourced a big chunk of their high-end security, which works fine.
Until it doesn't. Exactly. And the third factor identifies their strategic relevance, combined with being such an open society. New Zealand has this open, trade-reliant economy, strong democratic institutions, which is great, obviously, but it also makes it a prime target for more subtle threats. Things like covert influence campaigns, political manipulation, economic pressure. Our sources specifically mention China in this context.
And its location matters too. Being in the Pacific adds strategic value, but also exposure. One source calls it a soft Pacific node.
A soft Pacific node. That's a powerful phrase. Kind of vulnerable, maybe seen as an easier way to gain influence in the region.
Potentially, yes. So if you connect those dots, the underinvestment, weakening their own capabilities, the deep reliance on allies who might have other priorities, and being an open, attractive target in a strategically vital region, it creates this really complex security headache for New Zealand.
Yeah.
And the insight here, I think, is that New Zealand's very strengths, its openness, its global connections, its democratic values, have kind of ironically become vulnerabilities in this tougher security climate. It's not just about physical defense anymore. It's about resilience against these more insidious forms of pressure. This whole web of vulnerabilities means they have less control over their own fate, which makes this shift in defense strategy feel less like a choice and more like, well, an urgent necessity.
Okay, so facing these vulnerabilities, what are they actually doing about it? What are the proactive steps? Our sources highlight some immediate, pretty concrete moves. They're putting aside NZ $2 billion for 5 MH-60R Seahawk helicopters.
State-of-the-art maritime helicopters, really good for anti-submarine warfare, surface attack, general utility, a big capability boost for the Navy.
And another NZ $700 million for 2 Airbus A321XLR aircraft. Those are long-range passenger jets, right? What's the strategic thinking there?
Boosting long-range transport. Think troop deployments, disaster relief further afield, VIP transport. It adds significant reach and flexibility compared to what they have now. These aren't minor upgrades. They're serious investments.
Right, not just tinkering around the edges.
No, absolutely not. These purchases directly target known gaps in their fleet. They boost regional mobility, and perhaps just as importantly, they signal to allies and potential adversaries that New Zealand is serious about stepping up its defense posture. It shows they're not just talking about threats, they're actively investing in tangible capabilities to meet them.
And it's not just about buying new toys, is it? There's a diplomatic and strategic signaling aspect, too.
Definitely. Our sources mention Defense Minister Collins at the Shangri-La Dialogue. That's a major Asian security conference. She explicitly affirmed New Zealand would increase its deployments and deepen cooperation with allies.
So more presence, more engagement.
Exactly. Signaling a more assertive role in Indo-Pacific security. Taken together, the spending increase, these specific new platforms, the stronger diplomatic signaling, it really does mark a strategic turning point. New Zealand seems to be visibly moving away from just relying on being far away and having good friends. They're investing in greater self-reliance and showing they intend to be a more active player in regional security.
So to wrap this up for you listening, we've tracked how New Zealand, a country that's really leaned on its isolation and alliances for security, is now adapting pretty quickly, adapting to these rising global tensions, especially in the Indo-Pacific. And this new reality, it seems, demands a much more resilient, more autonomous security approach. With this ramped-up defense investment, the big fleet upgrades, and more regional engagement, New Zealand is clearly shifting gear towards greater strategic self-reliance. It's quite a transformation unfolding.
It really is. And it leaves us with a final thought, something for you to mull over. Given this major investment in new kit, this drive for more strategic independence, what might the long-term impact be on New Zealand's traditional role and influence in the Pacific? Especially as it tries to balance this newfound assertiveness with its long-standing reputation for diplomacy and, well, being a different kind of power in the region. How will its neighbors and global partners see the shift down the track?